Hello, everyone. This is Written in the Stars, and today I'll continue with building a zodiac sign based fantasy world. Today I'll be looking at the flora and fauna as well as the general natural resources of the different continents. I want to split the videos into the different elements, so there will be four videos for this, and we will be starting with the fire signs. As considerations, I will be looking at two things. One, those things are the biomes which I have assigned to the different signs. The other things are the meanings of the signs themselves, such as Aries being a very pioneering sign. For the fire signs themselves, I be looking plants and animals from deserts, savannas, and living by volcanoes. I think focusing on predatory animals like felines would be a nice way to combine all the fire signs, so them having a lot of cat-like creatures in all of the continents would be great. Then I also think very fast moving animals would be great, as well as animals that can withstand heat due to them being associated with the element of fire. For Aries, Aries needs some fast growing plants that grow by the volcanoes in the mineral rich soil from volcanic ashes. There are actually in real life things called pioneer plants, and I think this is just so fitting for the pioneering sign of Aries. And these plants are things such as ferns, mosses, lichen, and spikes, and they grow just within a few years after volcanic eruptions. Then other plants that grow near volcanoes are things such as pines, koa trees, or eucalyptus trees. And for some more fantastical plants, we can use the Aries association with fire. So maybe they're like firecracker plants whose seeds explode like fireworks. There's actually near the place where my parents have their horses, there grows this kind of plant that when you touch the thing where the seeds are contained in, and the seeds are ready, then they kind of explode. And I'm thinking of something similar, which could happen when these plants catch fire so that the plant spreads again. Something that could be also interesting would be trees that withstand a lot of heat, maybe have a lot of water deposit inside of them, or are heat resistant, but whose leaves are catching fire and can burn for a very long time, so that maybe even after a volcanic eruption they could persist. And something else that would be interesting would be trees that can grow from blood, because Aries is associated with war, and in the country there would be a lot of battles for resources. There could have developed species that draws from blood. For the animals, I also looked at ones that live around volcanoes. Insects have like lava crickets and lava tube spiders, which the lava crickets sit on the lava rock as it is like cooling down, and they can withstand a lot of heat, and they can, I think, even detect temperature changes. The lava tube spiders, they live in the cubes of the cooled lava. As inspiration for birds, there's the lesser flamingo, which can stand in hot water and even drink hot water, or the vampire ground the vampire ground finch, which can drink blood and live on blood. For the reptiles, there is the Galapagos land iguana, which lays its eggs in the still warm ash from volcanoes, and there are also lava lizards that can sit on the black lava rock. And for mammals, there are Japanese macaque, which keep themselves warm in the winter by bathing in hot springs near volcanoes. And there's also something called the tufted deer, which has fang-like canines they use to spar with their rivals. And I think this just fits Aries so much. We could even combine this with the ram, which is just generally associated with Aries, and create like a tufted ram, which has these fang-like canines. For the fire signs, I did not pay too much attention for the fish so far, but I think there are volcanic reef fish, and when I go into Aries more deeply, I could look at those. And also some mystical elements, some mythic elements that I could consider would be salamanders. There are real salamanders, but there's also the mythic salamanders and things like dragons. I am going to look at different mythic creatures as well later on. For the general resources, volcanoes have a lot of mineral rich soil which could produce plants with various fruits. Then there's also obsidian, which is volcanic glass. There's a lot of sulfur around volcanoes. There are hot lakes and hot springs. There could even be underground freshwater deposits that like seep through the volcanic rock. And there could also be geothermal energy, which causes electricity. So later on, they could develop electricity through this. Next up, we have Leo, and Leo, which is mostly a desert habitat, has a lot of plants that store a lot of water, are heat and drought resistant, and protect themselves from animals. So there's a lot of succulents like cacti, agave, and aloe vera. There will also be shrubs and trees, such as palm trees and just shrubs. I didn't look at them too much, but also ones that would be in the desert I would look at. And for more of a Leo association, plants that would trek or move with sunlight or that would open during the day would be very possible. Then plants that kind of reflect light so that they seem to sparkle under the sun. Then plants that resemble lions. I think there are actually a few in the real world that are like having lion in their name, and maybe even some kind of predatory plants that lure prey by kind of giving them a show to connect it with the attention seeking nature of Leo. Then for the animals, they behave similar to the plants. They can withstand heat and can store water. There are in real life insects such as the Sahara silver ant, which kind of sparkles in the sunlight. I also think bees would be very fitting because they have like a queen bee. Then for birds, there is a golden eagle or a Lucifer hummingbird. The Lucifer hummingbird has iridescent plumage, so it's very showy, and the golden eagle is a apex predator, which could be like connected to the king-like nature of Leo. Then for the reptile, there is such a thing as the horned viper whose horns glitter in the sun, and I think we could like change it to like a crowned viper who has like a crown-like head which also sparkles in the sun. And there's also the desert tortoise, which digs burrows in real life. And I think maybe they could also have like a shell that's a little shimmery. I'm essentially making everything shimmery. Then for the mammals, we have something like camels, which can store water. There's such a thing called the antelope hare, which lives on cacti and doesn't need much to survive. We could also have meerkats, and there's such a thing called the fennec fox, which has large ears and a slender body, and they just look so beautiful and kind of regal to me. We could also have a lion, which they don't usually live in the desert, but for association with Leo, we could have that. And I also found out there are fish in the desert, which are called desert pupfish. So we could have like some type of fish in the oases, maybe. And maybe they could also, in a way, resemble kind of like a cat, so like a desert catfish or something. And I won't make everything cats or sparkly. This is just some ideas that I'm playing around with. And to not make everything sparkly, I think it would be nice to kind of divide the animals into like kind of king species. So every insect and reptile and the mammals could have like a king species that is very visible and beautiful, and kind of maybe even with that beauty lures in its prey. And then we have like animals that hide and are more adapted to the environment to kind of be more subservient. I think this would fit quite well with Leo. And for the natural resources, they have oases with water. They could at some point develop solar energy. They could have a lot of iridescent metals, sunstone. I don't know if there's actually sunstone on Earth, but I think it could be just a magical stone that can store sunlight. Then, of course, gold or amber, everything like yellowy, goldenish. They could develop glass together with Virgo, maybe, and they could deal with a lot of luxury items. So there could maybe be a lot of items that are rare in the desert and rare anywhere else in the world, and they kind of deal with that, a lot of like precious stuff that gives them a lot of wealth. Next up, we have Sagittarius, which I looked at some savanna plants. There are grasses like Bermuda grass or elephant grass, which is basically like slender, tall grass. Then there are a lot of trees that are scattered around, so there's no forests, but they're scattered around. There are singular trees like acacia and baobab, and there are also a lot of shrubs. And one thing I found interesting is that there's like a candelabra tree, which kind of looks like the Jewish candelabra. And because Sagittarius is associated with religion, I think it would be just cool to have plants that have some kind of religious connotation. Like, I don't know if the candelabra tree has like any religious connotation. It's just something like per association that I got reminded of, which could be an interesting idea. Then also because it is associated with Jupiter, it could have just massive trees. Again, plants associated with religion or that have a religious meaning to some people, plants coming from other countries. So maybe there are nomadic tribes on Sagittarius that have ventured into different continents and that have brought different plants that are now home to this country or continent. I'm using it pretty interchangeably for now. And then there could also be plants through which wisdom can be gained. I'm thinking of like kind of altered states like ayahuasca, stuff like that. Next up, we have the animals, and I looked at some savanna animals, and I think nomadic animals would be cool too. For the insects, I'm thinking of grasshoppers, maybe termites. They have this really cool construction where they live in, and I think this could be raided by some nomadic tribes. Then birds, just by association with wisdom, I got owls and hawks because they just fly around and can oversee a lot. And reptiles, I got python. They just naturally live in the savannah. I don't yet know what I'm gonna do with the reptiles. For the mammals, I got elephants on the list because they are said to be pretty smart. Giraffe for their high vantage point from which they could look down at. Cheetah for their speed. And wild horses due to kind of the association of Sagittarius with the centaur, which is half horse. And again, in a more general sense, I'm thinking of migrating or nomadic animals, maybe even some kind of spirit animals would be cool that give the people wisdom. And then maybe animal human hybrids like the centaur, but just like different animal human hybrids, like cheetah human. I don't know how I would do that yet, but we'll see. And also kind of prophetic animals. So, like maybe watching flocks of birds for prophecy. There is something like this in the real world where birds are watched for prophecy. And this could also be something happening in Sagittarius. And lastly, for natural resources, we could have meteor gemstones. So I think moldavite and peridot come partially from meteors. In general, rare stones, just like stones from foreign countries, and something like prophetic fire, which happens when a meteorite hits. All right, this is it so far for the fire signs. This is all the brainstorming I got for the flora and fauna and the natural resources there. Let me know in the comments if you liked it, if you think they match, and if you really, really like the video, you can leave a like. And if you want to follow me more on this world building journey, you can also click the subscribe button. And if you want to know what I did before, I created a video about the natural disasters that it could occur on any continent, and you could watch that right now.